He was just a kid, shopping for sneakers on a Saturday afternoon. No crime, no fight, no reason to fear. But when the officers stormed in, everything changed. Within seconds, laughter turned to screams, and a simple trip to the mall became a scene of horror. Cameras rolled, people shouted, but no one stopped what was happening. By the time it was over, the truth behind why they targeted him would shake the entire town. What really happened that day, and why did it take the FBI to reveal it? Malik was 17, quiet, athletic, the kind of kid teachers called respectful. His Saturdays were simple: basketball practice, a stop at the mall, maybe a smoothie before heading home. That afternoon was no different. The air buzzed with weekend chatter, neon lights reflecting off polished floors, music drifting from store to store. Malik moved easily through the crowd, hoodie up, phone in hand, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He'd been saving for weeks, just enough for a new pair of sneakers. To him, it wasn't about the shoes. It was about earning something on his own, proving a small piece of independence. His mom had texted him earlier, "Be safe, baby." He smiled at the message, not realizing how much those words would matter. Across the food court, two officers were already watching. Maybe it was the hoodie, maybe it was the color of his skin, or maybe, as so often happens, it was something far more ingrained, something that had nothing to do with Malik at all. What began as an ordinary shopping trip was about to turn into a nightmare, and soon, the entire country would be talking about what happened next. Malik was heading toward the checkout line when it started, that heavy, uneasy feeling that someone was watching him. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe he'd just imagined the glances. But then he saw them. Two uniformed officers near the entrance, eyes fixed on him, murmuring to each other. He looked away, heart thudding, trying to stay calm. He'd done nothing wrong. He knew that. But experience had taught him that sometimes innocence didn't matter. He grabbed the shoebox, walked to the counter, and paid, hands slightly shaking as he slid his debit card across. The cashier smiled politely, unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. When Malik turned to leave, the officers began moving. Slow, deliberate steps cutting through the noise of the mall. "Excuse me, son," one of them called out. Malik stopped, confused. "What's the problem?" he asked quietly. Shoppers turned their heads. Phones lifted. A crowd began to form. "Empty your bag," the officer demanded. Malik frowned. "I just bought these," he said, holding up the receipt. The officer snatched it from his hand, barely glancing at it. "We've had reports of theft," he muttered. "You match the description." The second officer circled behind him. Malik's chest tightened. He could feel dozens of eyes on him now. Every second stretched longer than the last. "I didn't steal anything," he said again, voice trembling but steady. "Don't move," came the command. Then, before he could react, one of them grabbed his arm. Malik stumbled, the bag falling, sneakers spilling onto the polished floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "He didn't do anything." But the officers didn't stop. They forced him down. His cheek pressed against the cold tile, lights blurring above him. A tear slid across his face, half pain, half disbelief. The noise around him faded, replaced by his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then came the flash of cameras. Dozens of phones recording, voices rising, anger, fear, shock. "Get off him. He's just a kid." But it was too late. Malik's wrists were already in cuffs. The mall had gone silent except for the sound of one woman sobbing nearby. In the distance, someone shouted for security, another for management. And then, a sudden shift. A deep, commanding voice broke through the chaos. "Federal agents. Step away from him." The officers froze. Everyone turned. A group of men in dark jackets with bold yellow letters, FBI, pushed through the crowd. Malik lifted his head slightly, dazed. He didn't understand what was happening, not yet. But the looks on the officers' faces said everything. What the FBI knew, and what the crowd would soon learn, would change the story entirely. The air was electric, thick with confusion and disbelief. The mall, once filled with laughter and chatter, now stood frozen in a tense silence. The two officers still held Malik down, but the moment the FBI agents stepped closer, everything shifted. "Let him go," one agent ordered, voice sharp, controlled. The officers hesitated. "This isn't your jurisdiction," one snapped back. But the agent's badge said otherwise. "It is now." Hands trembling, the officer finally released Malik. The boy's wrists were red and raw. He tried to stand but stumbled, his body trembling from shock. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, anger mixing with outrage. Someone shouted, "They hurt him for nothing." Another yelled, "You saw what they did." One agent knelt beside Malik, speaking softly, but the words barely registered. His mind replayed every second, the grab, the force, the disbelief that this was really happening. He had done everything right, and still, it wasn't enough. Across from him, the lead agent turned toward the officers. "You detained a minor without cause," he said coldly, "and we've been investigating reports of racial profiling linked to your department." The color drained from the officers' faces. Cameras were still rolling. The world was watching now. Malik looked up, eyes glassy but steady, meeting the crowd that had witnessed it all. For the first time, he saw not just fear, but solidarity. Strangers recording, strangers speaking out, strangers who refused to look away. Then, the agent extended a hand to him. "You're safe now," he said quietly. But Malik didn't feel safe. Not yet. Because safety, he realized, was never guaranteed. Not for someone who looked like him. As they guided him away, flashes from the cameras lit the corridor like lightning. The story was already spreading. The truth could no longer be hidden. And for the officers still standing there, stunned and silent, their reckoning had just begun. Malik didn't sleep that night. The images replayed over and over. The cold tile beneath his cheek, the flash of cameras, the sound of strangers shouting for him. He wasn't just humiliated. He was changed. The FBI agents filed their report, and within days, the footage went viral. The officers were suspended, their department investigated, their names flooding headlines. But for Malik, justice didn't feel like healing. Every time he stepped outside, he felt eyes on him. Every siren made his stomach twist. The world had seen what happened, but he was the one who had to live with it. Still, something powerful grew from the pain. People he'd never met reached out, teachers, parents, other kids who'd felt the same fear. His story became a spark. Protests formed outside the mall. Signs rose, voices united, demanding accountability. For once, the silence was broken. Malik spoke publicly a month later. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "I don't want anyone to feel what I felt that day," he said. "I don't want another kid to become a hashtag before they become an adult." The crowd erupted, not in anger, but in hope. That's the thing about stories like Malik's. They don't end when the cameras stop rolling. They live in every conversation, every headline, every quiet moment of reflection. Because until stories like his stop happening, none of us can look away. So, ask yourself, if you saw it happening, would you speak up? Would you record? Would you help? What's right in front of you?